Kamala Harris has what we would call a no good, very, very bad week this week. First, getting accused of a hit and run accident, which we will be talking about in depth because I don't know if that one is real, but also insulting a large amount of Gold Star families and putting out an interview on CNN, which I have listened to, that even though that was fully scripted and fully edited, did not do her campaign any favors. So we'll be talking a bit about what's going on with that, where this goes, and what this does to the election going forward. In other news, covered up by the mainstream media, the Covenant School Shooters Manifesto has now been released. This one I have not read, full disclosure, but we'll be discussing some of what was in there, what some of the people have first talked about with the initial reactions to that, and where you can find and download the full manifesto so you can sit back and read it yourself. Migrants from Venezuela have taken over an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado. So we'll be talking about that. Plus, we had another suspected takeover of an apartment complex in Chicago and an attempt, maybe not, to take over a school bus in San Francisco. We'll go over that, what's happening there, and where we go with that. And may we be on a bit of a war footing right now? Who knows? 6 hostages of Israeli descent were killed in Gaza. Their bodies were found in one of the terror tunnels, and one of them wound up being an American citizen. So it is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. So strap yourselves in, find some friends, tell a few buddies about this, get some food, because I have not yet at this point here, and we will see you here on the other side of the title card. And why does the sun go on shining? Why does the sea rush to shore? Don't they know it's the end of the world? Because the critics out there don't love me anymore. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Folks, it's been an interesting week already this week with everything that went through there. I mean, we're going to start off at the very, very top of the show before we go over the stats and everything else that's going with that, with Joe Biden making an appearance again, being, well, Joe Biden, because, I mean, one of the biggest arguments that we've had because of the holiday weekend that we had is who loves labor more and who's going to do more for unions and who's going to do, excuse me, more of this and more of that. It's, I mean, we're already looking at the intensity of the election season heating up, so we've got that going for us here. Before we get started, there are a couple things I want to touch on, and I'm going to talk a bit more about this when we talk about things that I like at the bottom of the show, but I made a promise to the dude who appears to be an anarchist of sorts based on his X profile. Again, we're going to talk more about this at the bottom of the show, so in about an hour and 45 minutes, but I just want to say that because of a mutual follow named John, who you guys from the Ed's World days and from the Freedom Scoop / Transfer Pages production days already know, former co-host of the Generational Gap and the Porch Boys, he connected the two of us because the dude, and that's all that I know him as at this point, is going to donate his hair as well, just like I did earlier on. Well, not early on this year anymore. It's been almost a year at this point. It was the first week of December of last year, because you'll remember I had the nice long flowing locks. Most of you didn't see it most of the time, except when I dressed up as Razor Fist, because I'd let my hair down there for that, because I always had it pulled back in a ponytail otherwise. But yeah, when I was streaming, I pulled it back. But I went down back to Janesville, where I close to where I used to live, and donated 14 inches of hair because of the way they cut it. I believe it was Wigs for Kid was the name of the charity. I am going to double check that before I recommend that out to the dude. But I just want to, before we go into things I like and things that I hate, because I love charity, I want to give the guy the recognition that he deserves. So thank you for that, and I'm sure that the kids will thank you. I will get in contact with you. I'll get you in touch with the charity, and we'll maybe see where it is that you live. We'll talk about that in DM, because I don't want you to dox yourself, obviously. And who would be nearby that would be able to take for that particular charity. I had to hunt around to go find for a charity to donate my hair to. I did. It was a bit of a struggle, because everybody around here seems to go to Locks for Love, and they are, as he mentioned in the comment thread that he's working with, they are a wig maker, which means that they charge for their wigs, even though I got yelled at by Mira, Millennial Other, for saying, or pointing that out. She's like, no, they absolutely do not. And I'm sorry, Mira. I love you. I love your content. But they do. They do charge for that. So, unfortunately. So I'm going to get in contact with the dude. We'll talk a bit more about his. And I'll link and show his comment thread. I've got that on the top of things that I like at the bottom of the show. But before that, we've got some news. Apologies for starting late tonight. And I do have to come back off of this. But you guys know, and I said this on my X post as well, family comes first before anything else, before anything in my world. You guys know that. It's been that way. I mean, we did Contemporary the day that my dad had a heart attack, but I was an hour late that day too, because, well, I was an hour and a half away from here. And I did leave early on the day, so it's not like I left work and went up there at my regular leaving work time at the time. I left at like 11 o'clock in the morning and went up there, but I put it in the Discord. I said I didn't think we were going to have that, but visiting hours got over. I said I need to do something to distract myself, and we came home and we fucking rocked that episode of Contemporary. Absolutely. But family will always come first, no matter what happens. Family will come first. My concerns with my family trump anything else that I do, and I've told my regular 9-to-5 job this too. I'm like, if something happens with family, I don't care if you fire me. I'm going to tell you to screw off. My family comes first. But regardless, we're going to go with that, and that's going to be that. We do have a ton of stuff to go over here today. I dropped stuff because there was so much. And you saw it all in articles worth investigating if you're in the Discord, because, yeah, it's absolutely something that we needed to drop stuff for, because I might go 3 hours tonight. I hope not, because I'm hungry, but I might. It might happen. But anyway, we've got a lot to go down here today. Let's get the live chat up here so I can see what it is that you guys are doing. Why do I have the Rumble chat all the way over here? This is not a game night. I always put this over here when I'm doing things normally here. So let's get the live chat up. Yeah, one other thing that happened while I was getting started as well was, Palpatine's over here. I went to go sign in to the chat aggregator, the one that makes sure that you guys all can talk to each other across all the different platforms, and it made me do a sign in and a CAPTCHA while I was live. So that was another instance where I was delayed off this. But anyway, no more further delays. We've got 53 minutes. I'm sorry, an hour and 53 minutes. Let's talk about what's happening here in the news. And we're going to start, with Biden's Labor Day message for you. Because, hey, he is Mr. Pro-Union, so he's going to be the one to tell you how he feels about the union. Let's check in with the live chat here. Palm says, small human hope that today was a game day. Unfortunately, no, that'll be tomorrow, and we'll be back to Mario RPG. I'm so glad I'm playing that game, you guys. That is so awesome, and I'm going to tell you that right off the bat. I'm so glad I picked that up and did that, and got the capture card fixed so we could. I've been having so much fun with that, and I'm only one episode in. Palm says, insulting Gold Star family seems to be par for the course. Yes. No nachos. I'm actually going to be having one of my favorite struggle meals tonight. Even though I'm not in struggle position, I looked at the ground beef and the Quick Trip and I said, you know what I haven't had for a long fucking time? Broccoli and beef with cheese sauce. So that's what I'm having for that. It's keto, it's good for me, it's good to go, and yeah, that's going to be awesome. So that's coming. Palpy is in the house. Welcome, Palpy. Sorry it took so long to get started. Mog is here. Mog is last. Palm says, I'm not going to admit that I mistakenly shaved Ed's face too close to his face. Yeah, the settings got messed up on the clipper. I almost went straight clean. just for the hell of it, because I haven't done that since I grew my hair out. I would do it about once every 6 months before I grew my hair out, because it grows back nice and soft when I do. But I chose not to at this point. I just wanted to whack it back, and the settings got messed up, and yes, we are a little bit closer than I wanted to be, so there's that. Small human just handed me headphones. I guess she doesn't want to hear the news. Lame. That's fine. I saw the video too before I got started, but anyway, let's talk about what's happening on the news for the day. Alright, let's start with Joe Biden's Labor Day message here for you guys.
You can no longer be the manufacturing capital of the world. Where the hell is that written? We are the greatest manufacturing city, county in the world, state in the world, city in the world.
We're the greatest manufacturing city. I mean the county. I mean the state in the world. I mean in the city in the world. He's giving this from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which that is a campaign slogan for him because Chicago had Pittsburgh beat quite a few times over history. I think Pittsburgh might have it at this point, but it's been a toss-up between several U.S. cities throughout time. It's a moving target in our country, but good old Biden, the gaff master himself. Let's hear that again.
You can no longer be the manufacturing capital of the world. Where the hell is that written? We are the greatest manufacturing city, county in the world, state in the world, city in the world.
And I mean, a lot of this is campaign sloganeering for a campaign that he himself is not running yet at this point because he's passed it along to our diversity hire vice president. But with what it is that we're saying, this is in sharp contrast to this man's former boss, who got up on the microphone during a State of the Union and says, "Those jobs? Well, we're just going to have to adapt. Those jobs, they're not coming back. They're never coming back." That's where it was, quote, was written, of course, Mr. Biden, was that those jobs are never going to come back. That was written by your former boss. The things that you've done, and I'm going to come right out and say, I'm glad that you have done those things, because there were a lot of people that really were struggling for a job. But, I mean, it's been in your party's platform to ship some of those jobs overseas and move over to the service industry and to unionize the service industry as well. So, the President of the United States, 81 million votes, folks, right there. All right, let's talk some stats here real quick. The Dow, I've got that in the month right now. The Dow did hit another record close this week. Coming up to, let's go back out to our 5-day here, up to the 41,600 mark. So we're moving up right now. Unfortunately, it's kind of jaggering back and forth over the last 7 days. This showing 5 days, of course, but this is going back 8 days, 8 calendar days. Because, of course, the markets were closed for the holiday. But we had a nice big 600-point dump out today, so we'll see what's happening with that. We'll talk a bit about that from CNBC, of course. But it's not going anywhere and staying anywhere. It's just kind of, it's jumping rope. Nobody knows what's going to happen in our markets right now. And I hate to say it, but it's true. I mean, we're coming into the summer layoffs point, where a lot of these high school jobs are going to go away. The numbers, we've seen them revised down at some point here, but we've still got this big amount of hope that something's going to come around, something's going to break, and something's going to turn around. I don't know what's going to happen with the markets. And I'm starting to watch some YouTube videos to talk about beginner investing because I don't know a lot about it other than I bought a little bit of Doge when it was at its bottom. Well, not at its bottom, but when it was rising. And made off a little bit with the Doge, and I bought a little bit of Shiba while it was also, when that was at its complete bottom. And I made off okay with that one too. That's about the extent of my personal investing. Usually I go have the 401k come in and do that, but I've seen what my returns are, and I think I can do better at this point. So I'm going to start looking at doing some of that as well. I will not give official financial advice here because I am not an investor. an investment expert or an analyst for that. I'm just a guy with Google and a YouTube channel, so that's going to come with that, but hopefully I can do better than the 401k people can. We'll see what happens with that. Let's grab one from CNBC. Dow closes 600 points lower to begin September. S&P drops 2%. This is from Alex Herring. Stocks tumbled Tuesday as tech names struggled and new economic data rekindled fears around the health of the economy. It's not getting better, folks. I want it to get better. I don't care who's in office. I do somewhat because I'm terrified of Kamala Harris. But I want people to live prosperous lives and have prosperous retirements. But I don't see any policies that are going to make that happen long term. I see some policies that'll do some cool tricks short term, but I don't see any policies thus far out of this administration that'll make that happen long term. Or 1.51%, and at 40,936.93. The S&P slid 2.12, closing at 55,28.93. The Nasdaq dropped 3.26% and settled at 17,136.30. All three indices notched their worst days since the global sell-off on August 5th. Chip stocks weighed on the market, with high-flying Nvidia dropping more than 9%. Micron, KLA, and AMD also saw declines in the session. As a whole, the VanEck semiconductor ETF slid more than 7%. The S&P's information technology sector led the broad index lower and saw its worst day since September of 2022. The market initially took a leg down Tuesday morning after two readings of manufacturing production showed sign of weaknesses. The S&P's global showed a decline from July to August, while the Institute for Supply Management came in under the level anticipated by economists polled by the Dow. This data reignited concerns about slowing growth within the U.S. economy, which helped drive a closely watched sell-off early last month. Yeah, the Biden admin can go back and paint the numbers all they want. They can show we made these kajillion jobs, we produced these kajillion jobs, but they keep getting edited down over and over again, and the people are starting to notice. There's a lot going on with it. Like, I skipped another talk about people bragging about housing and houses going down and how Kamala was going to repeat Obama's policies that made it so that millennials could buy their first houses. Well, that was in part because of the adjustable rate mortgage crash that happened in concurrence with the other global economic crash in 2008. And if you drop a bunch of the value out of the houses that quick, just like we did in 08, there's going to be a lot of boomers that are fucking homeless. Just saying. Alright. Last one before we get into our main news of the day is I do want to do statistics on polling. Reminder, this is a no black pill zone. While I am terrified of Harris, I am not eager about voting Trump. I still might do it, just based on the fact that Harris terrifies me that uniquely. But, reminder, Harris is 1.9% points ahead on the aggregate right now. If you want to change the current makeup of the White House, it is incumbent upon you to go and vote, knock on doors, tell your friends to vote. Explain to them what the difference is between the two candidates. It is up to you to change. Now, and this day in history, another one to remind you, on September 3rd, 2020, in the aggregate, Biden was up by 7.2%, and Clinton was up by 3.9%, while Biden, honk honk, won the selection in 2020. Clinton, I'll remind you, being that much further ahead, lost that election. So there are still a lot of moving parts to this. This is not set in stone, and nothing will be set in stone until the first Tuesday in November. So keep that in mind. And do your part. If you want to see the upset of the century, which would far exceed the upset of the century that happened in 2016, then you need to get out and do your part and take 3 or 4 friends with you to do it. So that is where we are at statistically right now. It does look like the gap has been widening again. It was closing for a little while. We will see what happens with this, and we will continue to watch this every week and see where the aggregate goes. Let's grab the live chat up here again, see what you guys are doing and saying. Oh, there's a fight over the TV. Saint is here. Saint speaks from the dead. I don't want Saint to be dead. I like Saint. I actually want to have Saint on for Ed Talk at one point here because I know he did a pretty drastic change in his life recently as well. Plus, whatever the hell else we want to talk about in those 3 hours that we do this. Palm says, small human doesn't want to hear my noise, and I don't want to hear the small human show. I don't like any of the options. Anyway, let's talk about the interview. Now, I am not going to play any clips of the interview. I thought about it. I debated it. I listened to that today. They broke it up on CNN, on CNN's YouTube channel, rather, into 3 parts. And I'm not going to torture you with that. That is my gift to you. But I did listen to it. Now, the thought was, when this first came out, when the interview first came out, was that it was told that they were going to sit down for an hour with CNN's Dana Bash. I got about 24 minutes out of it. People were saying 16, 18, things like that. From what I got out of it, it looks like it was about 24 minutes long, was the interview. Between on the route that I was taking, the losses of service that I suffered, and me not realizing that it wasn't a loss of service, that it was actually, that segment of the interview was over. Very, very pre-scripted. A lot of campaign noise and nothing of real substance off of this. From USA Today, Harrison Walz talked cabinet hires and a viral DNC moment in the CNN interview from Taylor Wilson. Vice President Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who has to be there at any time, sat down with CNN Thursday. Former President Trump says he wants IVS treatment fully covered, which I disagree with. I dropped that from this week, by the way, and indicates he'll vote to overturn Florida's 6-week abortion ban. WHO announces pauses in Gaza fighting. Anyway. In her first interview since becoming the Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris brought running mate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz along with 67 days to go till the election. Harris had been criticized for not having had a press conference or interviews with reporters more than a month after President Biden dropped out of the race. CNN anchor Dana Bash pressed Harris on whether she would consider appointing a Republican to her cabinet, and the Democratic nominee was quick to respond with a yes before adding she didn't have anyone particular in mind. It's going to be Kinzinger. I promise you, it's going to be Kinzinger. The interview got a little testy when Bash asked Harris if she still supports fracking after saying in 2019 that she was in favor of banning fracking. No, Bash didn't push on shit. She pointed these things out and just said, okay, well, here's your chance to explain yourself, and we're just going to take everything that you say as gospel. Harris seemed irritated with the question and responded saying that she had made it clear in a 2020 vice presidential debate stage that she would not ban fracking if voters elected Biden to the White House. The interview also saw Walz address his emotional moment last week at last week's Democratic convention when cameras caught his son Gus emphatically supporting his father, saying, "That's my dad!" Asked about the moment, which has drawn attention to his son's nonverbal learning disorder as well as anxiety and ADHD, Walz replied that it was a visceral, emotional moment. You can read more takeaways from yesterday's interview with a link in the show notes today, so we'll be talking a bit more about that. Look, I listened to the thing, and yes, Bash brought up a lot of the flip-flops, but after having listened to this whole interview, I understand now why they waited 37 days to have a press conference. They wanted their people, their little operatives over on X and probably on Truth Social as well, to be out here saying, hey, this is what the blue check Republicans are saying about Harris. Let's go answer that question. So it seemed like it was catered and tailored to try to debunk narratives. But it didn't even do that well. I mean, you could see where the jump cuts were. Even just listening, even not watching the video of it, you could hear where all the jump cuts were in this. I want to hear the full transcript of the entire thing. The stuff that was cut out of there, the stuff that wasn't there. But it really was 18 minutes of nothing. Oh, you can't chat on YouTube because... Oh, yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I went into my mom's Google account on her phone and actually changed her display name off of there. So, if you ever see Mama J. Edgar in the chat, that's my mom. And I did that because she wants to come in sometimes and chat too. So, yeah, we have that. And yeah, it was... I mean, I will link the interview, the 3 segments, into the Discord if you guys want to hear it yourself. Do not eat immediately prior to listening to this, because it's so sappy and sugary sweet that you will throw up whatever it is that you talk about. But, I mean, it was enough that even Bill Maher, liberal Bill Maher, Brian Griffin Democrat Bill Maher, has called out the Democrats. Now, I can't stand Bill Maher, but I do have a lot of respect for him in his journalistic styling. Bill Maher is not so deep in the tank Democrat that he can't see their flaws. He will call them out when they're being stupid, but he'll call them out on the... Well, I guess it's kind of like me with when Trump does something stupid, when we have bad Trump days. Part of it comes from the fact that I have no intent to vote for Donald Trump, and I've been very vocal and open about that. But I will come back out and say, and talk about it, say, hey, you know, this is stupid. What you're doing right here is stupid, and this is going to hand a victory out to Democrats. Don't do that. I don't want to live under Harris' presidency, please. And it seems that Maher will do the same thing. Like, he is that viscerally hateful to Trump. For, given his ideology, good reason. I will come out and completely admit that. But he's not going to let the Democrats get away with being stupid. Like some of the other paid chills out here is like, oh, well, this person has a D after the name, so they can literally do nothing wrong off this. So let's just praise everything they do and defend everything they do. Yeah, I'll give you that one, Palpatine. He does see their evil and votes for them anyway, but he does actually offer constructive criticism to them instead of just saying, no, everything you do is saintly. It's more of a, stop doing this shit, or you're going to lose. Let's read. Bill Maher mocks flip-flops from Harrison Walls in CNN interview, just insulting my intelligence. From Joseph A. Wolfson. Real-time host Bill Maher shared his own mixed reactions about Kamala Harris' CNN interview, offering both praise and criticism for the Democratic nominee. I thought she did great. I thought she did fine, Maher began the panel discussion Friday night. I don't know why we ever thought that she was as bad as people thought she was. It was like Biden had the one bad night, and she's had 3 bad years. Maher suggested that both Harris and Tim Walz were insulting his intelligence by the things that they chose to be evasive about. The host called out Walz's comments, suggesting he speaks the way normal people speak. Yeah, I saw that one too. And by the way, I've never seen somebody weasel out of his position on his military record faster than Tim Walz did. That was kind of impressive, I'm not going to lie, how fast he could weasel out of that one. No, you don't. You're a huge liar, like all politicians are. Fact check true, Maher reacted. I don't give a shit what you did during the Iraq War. You were in the Guard. I don't understand why they just can't... And he broke off. The host nodded. They're just insulting my intelligence. Yeah, that's, I mean, fantastic point with... And I thought the same thing coming down the hill when I was listening to Walz weasel his way out of his service. I'm like, you did drop out right before you got deployed. You were tired, you had your years in, etc., and you knew you were about to be deployed, so you didn't want to go see combat. But you did serve your country. And if you were to come back and owned up to that instead of using that on the campaign trail before, you might actually be a respectable politician today. Now, I understand, right now this is first coming to light for the first time. Instead of coming back and seeing this 25 years later, and having to go back and try to explain it 25 years later. And there is some damage control that does to that, but I mean, there was an easy out to this, and the Harris campaign chose not to take it. The HBO host gave Harris high remarks for not taking the bait when she was asked about former President Trump's comment about her race. That was also being evasive. I will not give her high marks for that one. Because, yes, she became black specifically because they wanted to have a black female. But they also wanted Harris. She is not black. She's not of African descent. She's of Indian extraction. That was just so great, Mara said. She said, same old playbook. And Dana said, like, that's it? That's it. That's my answer. That's all you're getting. I'd like to hear more of why she is suddenly black when she has not a drop of African blood going through her veins. Mara went on to express how puzzled he is about Harris's messaging, particularly when she repeatedly talks about finding a new way forward. It's an odd thing to say when you're in the present administration, is it not? Mara reacted, yeah, that's the other thing. It's not a new way forward. It's going to be 4 years of the same thing that we've had for the last 4 fucking years. He also repeatedly mocked the interview set up with Harris and her emotional support VP. It was a little odd. He was just sitting there for a very long time without saying anything, and he was just nodding while she did all the talking. The women's focus groups said, he must be a wonderful husband, Mark quipped during the opening monologue. Yeah, when Bill Maher is criticizing you as a Democrat, you should probably switch your messaging at some point here. Alright, so we've got this story here. Gen X, who's at Jen Renee X over on X, put out this post. In June 2011, Kamala Harris allegedly struck 2 pedestrians in San Francisco and fled the scene, leaving a 13-year-old girl paralyzed. Alicia Brown, a victim, claims Harris's team had intimidated her mother to keep silent. The story surfaced after her mother's death in 2024. Now, some things that I don't like about this. Even if you pan the picture out, you can see the KBSF TV in the description, but the story, like, they're not putting the original source material in. And like, if you go into this the link that they put in the second comment, the site can't be reached because KBSF TV's DNS address could not be found. Google's diagnosing the problem, but I'm going to tell you right off the bat, I know why it can't be found. It's because it doesn't fucking exist. Readers added context to this as well. The FCC license lookup portal returns no broadcast license issued to the call sign KBSF. The source is portraying itself as a broadcast station, which is false. And then it links to the FCC regulations and the search for KBSF. So, as of right now, even though this is one of the big circulating comments on X about all this, I'm going to call this likely false. And I want to address that. And I can't stand Kamala Harris. I am so uniquely afraid of her that I would vote for Donald Trump a third time. And that is saying something because I've spent the last 3 years saying no fucking way. But she's done enough stupid crap that you can defeat her without coming and making stuff up. Or putting stories up there that can't be corroborated. Like it or not, this does nothing but hurt your cause. I've got Times Now World, which is not green check verified. This is an international source. Was Kamala Harris involved in 2011 hit-and-run accident of Alicia Brown? Fact-checking viral claims. A woman named Alicia Brown claims she was hit and run victim involving Kamala Harris in 2011. The video allegedly from KBSF-TV is circulating online. However, KBSF-TV doesn't exist, and the website was recently registered. A video has surfaced on social media in which a woman who identifies herself as Alicia Brown claims that she was the victim of a hit-and-run accident involving Vice President Harris in 2011. The video, published with the graphics of a news channel called KBSF-TV, has the woman describing how she was a victim of the accident but could not come forward and do something because she was afraid. However, as has been pointed out by many, there is no channel for KBSF-TV in San Francisco. The domain of the website was registered on August 20th and has been publishing stories for a little more than 2 weeks. According to the reader's added context section of a post containing a screenshot of the KBSF-TV article, the post appears to be a complete fabrication. The article, which has since been taken down, was published on September 2nd and claimed that Harris hit Brown with a car when the latter was 13 and left the scene. Brown claims in the video that Harris's team intimidated her mother, which is why she could not come out with the story before. However, after her mother died in 2024, she said she is now coming out with the story. So, I am going to call this false. At this time. If something comes out and surfaces, and this can be corroborated by police records, by traffic records, by medical records, or anything else, I will walk back my false. But everything that I'm seeing about this one tells me that this is a fabrication. Speaking of things that are a fabrication, Vice President Harris has had 2 instances now at this point where she has decided that the regular way that she talks just isn't right for the crowd that she's addressing here. ALX over on X asks, what is going on with Kamala's accent?
You better thank a union member for the 5-day work week. You better thank a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time. You better thank a union member for the 5.
You know, if I started talking like that, they'd call... Wait, can I say the W word on YouTube? I probably can't. But it's... And AOC did the same thing, by the way. And, I mean, this goes right down the same avenue of what Hillary Clinton did on the campaign trail. Native New Yorker Hillary Clinton suddenly had a southern accent when she was talking to crowds in Georgia, Arkansas, Tennessee. But also, when she was talking to a predominantly black crowd, not only did she put on the southern accent, but she went with the hot sauce in the handbag comment. And that's the same thing that Harris is doing with this. Trying to pander to the lowest common denominator and say, hey, I'm just like you, speaking in a way that she has never been on record anywhere before speaking. But wait, we have a defender here. And I've got 2 other clips here. One of them I think is the one that we just watched, but we'll look at those in a second. But Chup the Legend trying to push back and saying, I'm crying at white folk being upset because they're just now realizing that we have to code switch in order to basically survive in certain situations. She's alright, we get it. What situation are you, the Vice President of the United States, and a major party presidential nominee, surrounded at all times by the Secret Service? What is it that you have to do? Why do you have to talk like that to survive? One of the most protected human beings on the planet. This Chup the Legend is quote tweeting Johnny Maga, pointing out Kamala in Detroit versus Kamala in Pittsburgh, literally 5 hours apart. The difference is insane. Let's listen.
You better thank a union member a union member for sick leave. You better thank a union member for paid leave. You better thank a union member for vacation time.
I'd rather not.
Thank unions for sick leave. Thank unions for paid family leave. Thank unions for your vacation time. Thank unions for sick.
Yeah. It looks like they try to communicate, community note this rather, but with opinion pieces.
You better thank a union member.
All right, that's enough of that. I don't want to listen to that again. Shut up. Speaking of unions, Kamala Harris, from the official Kamala Harris account, X's out. When I am president, we will pass the PRO Act, PRO, and end union busting once and for all. Excuse me. Which I quote X'd and reminded, and I'm sure that some of you in the chat remember because we talked about this when the rail strike was getting to happen, but reminded, didn't your current administration bust a rail strike? Reminder that when Amtrak was about to go on strike and shut down the passenger rail, the Democrats and the Biden admin passed a law saying that it was illegal for them to strike. Because our supply chain was in such a snarl at that point. And this was early 2023 when this happened. Like, first week of January 2023. I know it got memory hold. I know that we don't want to talk about it anymore. But yeah, the Biden-Harris administration busted a rail strike as it was about to happen. So, yeah, we are in favor of unions until you inconvenience our administration and our chances to go and get reelected. All right, both Trump and Harris claim to support the working class. Where do they stand on labor? Yes, that law is still in place. They never repealed it. From Kinsey Crowley. Even if it wasn't, the fact that it was written by Democrats shows that we've got a major problem with who supports what labor. Even if it didn't pass, the fact that it was even written and considered. Labor Day weekend, about 65 days from Election Day, often starts in the home stretch of the presidential election campaign. The federal holiday also celebrates a demographic that both former President Trump and Vice President Harris claim to advance, the labor movement. President Trump is making lasting inroads with union leaders and broadening the Republican intent in a historic way, Trump campaign spokesperson Caroline Leavitt told USA Today in a statement while blaming Harris for inflation. In an August 8th memo shared with USA Today, Harris-Walz campaign manager Julie Chavez Rodriguez argued union support is a key part of the Democratic path to victory. Kamala Harris has fought for labor and workers' rights for her entire career. During her time as a state attorney general, U.S. senator, and as vice president, Chavez Rodriguez said, adding Harris promises to continue the pro-worker agenda of the Biden-Harris admin. While Trump performed better than expected among union workers in 2016, some of that support shifted back to Biden in 2020. Experts say that Biden's popularity among union workers is likely to carry over to Harris, and unlike 2016, unions may be energized by the recent wins from several major strikes. Except for the one, of course, that the Harris and Biden admin busted. It suggests labor's got some muscle and some fire in their tank, Bob Bruno, director of the labor education program at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, told USA Today in an interview. If you think you can win, you're really going to push a whole lot harder. The Harris campaign seems to tout Biden's record as a pro-union president to justify the labor movement's draw to Harris. And Celine McNicholas, Policy Director at nonpartisan research organization Economic Policy Institute Action, agrees. There are parts of the Biden admin, his record on benefiting the workers, that I think Harris deserved unique credit on. Because she was essentially the tie-breaking vote, said McNicholas. She said a marked difference between the Trump admin and the Biden admin is their agency nominations. Looking at any admin's ability to act effectively on behalf of the workers, they've got to have nominees to the critical agencies that understand the issues and that are pro-worker and pro-workers' rights to a union. McNicholas said, pointing to the National Labor Relations Board General Counsel Jennifer Abruzzo, who Harris cast the deciding vote for. Harris also chaired the White House task force on the worker organizing and empowerment aimed at reducing barriers to unionization, which is a big reason she has a no vote for me. I think that those acts, to me, are demonstrations of her willingness to engage, her prioritization of these issues, and the kinds of nominees that we would likely see from her admin, McNicholas said. So, a few things that go along with this. Now, I am pro-union. If you want to get together with your buddies, and you all work together and sign a pact with each other and say, you know what, if one of us leaves, we're all going to leave. We're all going to walk out the door unless we get X, Y, and Z. Hey, let's actually pool our money together, some of our salary together. Let's hire a lawyer to make sure that, in case we do get terminated for walking off the job because we're in a union, then we have the ability to go back and fight back. That's fine. I don't care about that because that is entirely voluntary. You have shared the risks and you'll share the rewards. That's a good thing. What I don't like, and the reason that I'm considered to be an anti-union person, is that I am against the corporate union, the AFL-CIO and its subsidiaries, of which I've worked for 2 branches of, by force. Let me rephrase that last sentence again. By force. I was told, basically, when I was working for the UFCW, I'm not going to give the local chapter number, obviously, which I worked for twice, by the way. Same chapter, both times. The first time, I was young and 19 and told, oh, they're going to do all this great for you, and everybody's going to protect you, and this, that, and the next thing. I went into the union office at the behest of my father, who was a union worker his entire career, and said, hey, is it possible that we can get a little bit of a bump in pay for me here? Because I see this truck that I like and I want to buy it. And that was the start of my trying to work harder than everybody else phase in my life, which I'm still going through right now. And my union told me, no, fuck yourself. I walked in and I told the boss, the general manager of the grocery store I worked at, that same situation. Like, hey, I just need maybe another 25 cents an hour and I'm qualified to go buy this cool truck that I like. And he looked back at the HR manager and said, mark him up 50 cents. He does a lot of good work for us. And the second time, it was the same situation, except I was working on a mechanic shop fleet for a meatpacking plant that was represented by the same union, the same chapter, and actually the same union rep. And I was told again, I asked right at the beginning, I said, I don't want to join your union. I've already been a part of this union and they told me to F myself. I don't care what happens, I don't want to get in the way of this. And I was told, no, absolutely not. You will join the union and you will like it. See, the problem I have with corporate unions like the UFCW 14, well, I'm not going to finish that one. I almost brought it back out, the entire one. But the problem I have with chapters like that, or the Boilermakers Union, or things like that, is that they are mandatory in most cases. Now, Wisconsin has right to work, so they're not mandatory anymore. If you want to work for a job that has union protection and you want to tell them to go and screw themselves, you have the right to do that. I like that. But I still want the people who want to unionize to be able to unionize. if they want to do that. In other states right now, it's compulsory. If you want to work for this factory or this division or this or that and the next thing, you have to join that union. You have to pay those dues. Even if you're getting disciplined and you tell the union rep that he can go and get bent and get out of the office, you are still required to pay those dues, which they're so totally going to fight the company that you work for your rights while they're getting paid out of your company's payroll department, because they come right out of your check as you go. I am not anti-union. I'm anti-compulsory. I'm anti-compulsion in a lot of things. Now, what does this translate to Harris and Trump? With Harris and Trump, under the Trump administration in 2016, the first idea was the idea that these jobs they were told by the Biden admin that they were never coming back. Just go find a new job, retrain for something. I don't care if you're 65 years old, go train for something else, because we don't want those jobs anymore. We want to have these new, clean technology jobs, which the Biden admin did an about face on. It's probably one of the only reasons that they got honk honk 81 million votes. And the Harris administration is going to come back down there because, yes, that was a tremendous folly by the Biden admin. And it's probably what cost Hillary the election. Not Russian interference. But the Donald, for all of his faults, did talk to the union workers and said, hey, I want you to keep doing these jobs and I want them to be here. I want all these products to be made right here in the USA. Whether or not you unionize, that's between you and your boss. I'm not getting in part of that. Whereas with the Harris administration and many of the progressive Democratic operatives, the idea is, okay, we're going to make all these brand new union jobs, and we're going to make it so that everybody has to be in this union. I mean, they sell it as that everybody's going to want to be in the union, but yeah, it's going to be compulsory under them. And again, the biggest problem I have is the compulsion, and coupled on top of that is the fact that the major union offices, the local chapters and everything else, plus the AFL-CIO itself, are major donors to the Democratic Party, which means that your union dues, once they get pulled, a portion of that is going to be an in-kind donation to Democrats, whether you like them or not. That is my rant on unions. All right. Now that we got that over with, good God, how long did I spend just on that one topic? We've also got the Gold Star family story, which, I mean, Kamala, don't do this. I don't want you to be president, and I don't want you to be this fucking stupid. Harris prioritized criticism of Trump but not Gold Star families by Greg Gutfield. We're not going to watch the whole thing of this because this is an 8-minute clip, but we'll watch some of this.
Gold Star families of the 13 heroes killed in the botched Afghan withdrawal are defending President Trump's visit to Arlington Cemetery after Vice President Harris said on X this: Donald Trump's team chose to film a video there, resulting in an altercation with cemetery staff. Let me be clear. The former president disrespected sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. But those families invited him, and they are not happy with the way the vice president is portraying the solemn event. Watch.
We wanted a leader. That explains why you and Joe didn't get a call.
President Trump has been there for us from the very beginning.
Vice President Harris, I ask you, why won't you return a call and explain to us how you call my daughter-in-law's death a success?
We had the woman judge who invited President Trump. She's one of the moms. She was on Newsroom Today. Let's take a quick listen to her.
Before we finish off with this, I do want to talk about one thing, and that's as we go in with this Gold Star family story. The prevailing narrative that's being spread around by the mainstream media. Hey, that's not what I wanted. Let's go back to that, please. Anyway, the prevailing narrative is that Donald Trump came down to have a photo op in front of the gravesite of, and I guess it happened in front of the gravesite of somebody who offed himself and is buried in Arlington, which a bunch of other people are up in arms about. But the other side of that is the fact that while this is probably one of the most recorded human beings on the planet, and I'm sure that there's body cam footage for Secret Service, and yes, there's always going to be news coverage as well because they've got to see him go everywhere just in case he says something racist. The prevailing narrative is that there was a fight, an altercation, in the Arlington National Cemetery. But nobody seems to be able to produce video of this. Which is weird, because again, the news media is out there. We have the news media coverage of him stepping down the stairs in Arlington. Is there video of this altercation? Can we corroborate that this even happened? Again, I will be fair. If you can bring me the corroboration, the video of this, even a picture of this fight happening, I'll eat my hat. I would do it on air, except for the fact that it's got the logo of the company I 9 to 5 for, but I will eat my hat. If you can prove that this actually happened. Because again, with news media coverage going everywhere, typically if Donald Trump does something stupid, there's a camera on him when he does it.
Afghan withdrawal are defending President Trump's visit to Arlington Cemetery after
Paul, my daughter-in-law's death.
Been there for us. He's been our rock. He's been there for us there.
Has Kamala Harris decided to protest too much?
Yes, I think she does protest too much, and I think that it's working against her. Look, there's, that you would not return a phone call from a mother whose daughter was killed in an attack that could have been prevented had the rules of engagement been clearer, had someone given the order, you can take the shot where no one's going to be injured other than the suicide bomber. But look, who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe the Gold Star families? Are you going to believe the angel mothers, like the mother of Jocelyn Nungary or the mother of Rachel Laken Riley, or Jonathan Diller's family? I mean, the people who lost so much and have no interest in politics whatsoever, when they speak and you juxtapose what they say against people who are in power and whose power and policies have literally contributed to or directly caused the death of your loss. I mean, this is a real easy choice to make. And in the end, this so-called, apparent altercation that took place at Arlington National Cemetery that Kamala's trying to twist into, Donald Trump, his team, he caused a real problem. You know what? If there was an altercation, get yourself an affidavit that's sworn to, file yourself some criminal charges, or shut the F up, because the families want you to shut the F up, and they're telling you we don't want you. You haven't been there for us. You were not at the transfer of the caskets. You've never called us, and you don't answer our phone calls. What could be worse?
But she was.
And Pirro brings up a great point off of that. Let's read from CBS News. Several Gold Star families defend Trump's Arlington Cemetery visit, criticize Harris for her response, from Olivia Rinaldi and Jacob Rosen. Gold Star families, the service members who were killed during the terrorist attack on Kabul airport during the 2021 withdrawal from Afghanistan, some of whom attended a visit to Arlington with former President Trump, that resulted in a controversy, criticized VP Harris for attacking Trump. Harris took to social media on Saturday to condemn Trump and his campaign for disrespecting a sacred ground, all for the sake of a political stunt. Don't get me started on Arlington Cemetery and the senseless, needless wars that were started by people like Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the fucking Bushes, and calling this somehow some sacred ground. After people like that have sent people who are in that cemetery basically to their deaths. I'm anti-war even before I'm a fiscal conservative. Harris took to social media on Saturday to condemn Trump and his campaign for disrespecting a sacred cow, all for the sake of a political stunt. The former president responded to Harris with a series of short videos from the families, including those that did and did not formally invite him to attend the memorial at Arlington National Cemetery on Monday. In the video, Gold Star father Mark Schmitz, father of Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz, said they didn't invite Trump to the cemetery to help his campaign. "We wanted a leader," Schmitz said. How do you sleep at night knowing that it was you, this admin, you and Biden, you being the last one in the room, are responsible for the deaths of our 13 kids? Jim McCollum, Gold Star father of Lance Corporal Riley McCollum, said in the video, "You have failed for 3 years and 8 months to acknowledge our kids, to acknowledge me. You don't know me, you've never spoken with me, you've never reached out to me. You have failed in your duty as vice president." The response from the families is the latest in controversy over Trump's visit to Arlington. These were Harris's first comments since it was reported that an altercation between a cemetery official and a Trump campaign staffer occurred on Monday. While the Trump campaign says it had explicit permission to bring campaign-designated media on the cemetery grounds, rules at Army National Military Cemeteries are dictated by federal law, which prohibits any filming for partisan, political, or fundraising purposes. According to the Arlington National Cemetery media policies, even if they're requested by family members of the fallen, which that in and of itself I will agree with. But I still, even with the campaign video and everything else, don't have a video of this, and that bothers me. And no, you shouldn't have brought campaign media along. You are correct on that. From the Associated Press, Trump issues a statement from Gold Star families defending Arlington Cemetery visit and ripping Harris. Let's see if we can just get the statement, because we've read a bunch about this. President Trump was invited by us, the Gold Star families, to attend the solemn ceremonies commemorating the 3-year anniversary of our children's deaths, said the relatives' joint statement. He was there to honor their sacrifice, yet Vice President Harris has disgracefully twisted the sacred moment into a political ploy. So, it does get worse. Daily Wire: Trump blasts Biden, Harris over Arlington Cemetery controversy. Made up story to hide the blood on their hands, from Tim Pierce. No video on this one. Donald Trump denied reports of an altercation between his campaign staff at Arlington National Cemetery, calling it a made-up story to cover up the Biden-Harris admin's record on Afghanistan. NPR was first to report that 2 members of Trump's campaign had a verbal and physical altercation with an official at Arlington, as the former president attended a wreath-laying ceremony for 13 service members killed during the Afghan withdrawal. There was no conflict or fighting at Arlington National Cemetery last week. It was a made-up story by Comrade Kamala and her misinformation squad, Trump posted on social media Tuesday. She made it all up to make up for the fact that she and Sleepy Joe have blood on their hands, in all caps, for the incompetent Afghanistan withdrawal, the most embarrassing day in U.S. history. They should have been at Arlington, not on a beach or studying for the debate. Thank you to my friends, the great Gold Star families, for revealing the truth of a beautiful day of honor. Could not have been a nicer moment, and there were no fights or no problems. Only in the heads of those who are destroying this country. And here it is. The NPR report quoted an anonymous source, stating there was an altercation happened after a cemetery official tried to prevent Trump staffers from filming and photographing in a section where recent U.S. casualties are buried, citing cemetery rules. Did it happen? Here's the reality. only the campaign staff, the Arlington staff, and the Gold Star families will ever know for sure. None of the rest of us were there, and there is, at this point, no video. It might have happened, but none of us will ever know for sure. For the rest of us, it will only be he said, she said, and which side you believe will mostly depend on your partisan leanings. Couple more, or one more for this one here. Just based on the fact that the Gold Star families are now having the conversation and defending Trump. Well, what does that mean in Democrat land? That means you're an enemy of the people if you're defending Trump. Palm's internet is being dumb, which is lame. Mock says they all have blood on their hands. As the commander-in-chief, it's a necessary evil. They all use Arlington as a political token. It is sickening. Couldn't have said it better myself. The Foo, Politibunny, who used to be a mutual follow with me, is not anymore, poses the question, why'd you delete this and change your picture? Worried people will see you for who you really are, and that is at Kansas GOP Slayer, whose X account has been deleted. With a screenshot, Dale Stark says, just when you think they can't get any lower, Harris supporters are now attacking Gold Star families directly. Truly disgusting behavior. With Kansas, who is at Kansas GOP Slayer, saying, sorry, everyone can see through your attempts to distort the narrative. Fuck Trump. And then she says the most regrettable words in history. YouTube and listeners, this is a quote. This is not me actually saying this. Fuck the Gold Star family and fuck you. Now, in this thread, and I did report it, somebody did dox this person. Don't dox people. Don't be like them. Don't post their work information. I will not show this, of course. But no, don't dox people. Don't be like that. Alright. One more on the campaign, and then we're going to talk about the Covenant shooting. I think, by the way, Hillary Clinton has gone complete, full scorched earth at this point. I think she wants to see Democrats fail. For Democrat women turning their backs on her in 2016, I cannot fathom any other reason. Because she talked about deprogramming Trump supporters, and it got widely spoken about in the news. She calls Kamala the underdog because of the Electoral College. I think she's trying to carpet bomb the DNC. Hillary Clinton calls Kamala Harris the underdog because of the Electoral College, from Hannah Panrick over at Fox News. Oh, this is an exclusive. I can't read the rest of this. Let's put that on the back burner. Alright. From the Daily Wire. Covenant shooter's entire diary published revealing obsession with white privilege and transgenderism. From Luke Rosiak, the diary does not contain detailed plans of the shooting, which the FBI cited as the reason for not releasing the text. No, the reason for not releasing the text is that it shows that this person was driven by a hatred of white people. From Luke Rosiak, the Tennessee Star on Tuesday published the nearly 100-page journal of the 28-year-old woman who killed 3 adults and 3 children at the Covenant Christian School in Nashville, Tennessee. The journal offers a glimpse into the mind of a self-proclaimed autistic person prone to depression and obsession. The shooter's 2 most animating obsessions were left-wing ideas about transgenderism, including the idea that children will kill themselves if they cannot get gender surgery, and white privilege. The 2 themes converged in the overall format of the journal, which often takes the form of diary entries addressed to a brown girl, with whom the shooter was in love. The shooter reportedly played basketball with the girl in 8th grade and had not remained in contact, but created a race-based idea of the girl in her mind. The diary entries detailed how the shooter's autistic brain struggled with different ideas like white privilege. And they have it Tennessee Star watermarked at this point. On February 7th, 2023, a month before the shooting, the shooter drew a diagram that said, brain goes to white privilege, goes to embarrassment of self. The shooter wrote poems about her longing for interracial sex. Nothing in the nearly 100-page journal appears to justify the FBI's claim that it was withholding the name of public safety. Nashville City Council member Courtney Johnson told the New York Post that the FBI said the manifesto couldn't be released because it was a blueprint on total destruction and it was so detailed at the level of what she had planned that documents in the wrong person's hands could be astronomically dangerous. Police inventory said that there were 2 journals at the shooter's desk, 1 under her desk and 7 under her bed. So it's possible that such information was in another journal, but this journal, which appears to be the most recent, does not include any detailed information about penetrating a school or carrying out a shooting. Well, I'd kind of like to see the rest of them at this point, too. Tennessee Star editor-in-chief Michael Patrick Leahy filed a lawsuit under the Tennessee Public Records Act seeking the release of the writings. Nashville judge Aisa Miles blocked the release of even a single page, saying the diaries were copyrighted. She also threatened Leahy with contempt of court. Leahy said that he obtained the diary through legal means outside of the Public Records Act and published it because it was in the public interest to do so. Palm is back. The documents and photos have helped us inform the public about the underlying reasons for this heinous attack and help drive the public discussion of what should be done to prevent such acts of violence in the future, Leahy said. We've documented a massive failure on the mental health system as a root cause of Hale's reprehensible actions. The shooter wrote angrily about American politics, appearing to echo left-wing talking points about gender. Land of the free means whatever fucker is taking away human rights is not of a human at all. She wrote, I wish death upon myself because of the pure hatred of my female gender. With no rights, anyone's country is a shitty dictatorship. She made a chart using the critical race theory buzzword of deconstruction and pairing with reconstruction. Alright. If you or a loved one is experiencing feelings of self-harm, feel you have no one to talk to, nowhere to go, and we have to put this up there because the shooter mentioned self-deletion, of course. I'll remind you, help is available, 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Languages, English and Spanish, call 988, connect with them, please get the help that you need. If you are having any of these feelings, or if anything in this manifesto pushes you to have these feelings, please do not hesitate. Stop the stream, put your phone down, pick it back up, and dial 988. And if you need further resources in helping to prevent self-deletion, reach out to the AFSP. I know Gina, the director of the local Wisconsin chapter. She is an amazing person to talk to. I'm going to get her on Ed Talk, I think, at some point here, and have a nice long conversation with her outside of our charity stream. Thank you for that PSA. Let's keep going. Autistic people are especially susceptible to adopting ideas that are born in the wrong body. Male brain equals my autism, the shooter wrote. Mom just says I'm young, and young people make mistakes, but with me, it's painfully more than that. With being autistic and a waste of time, all the time, the shooter writes. And it goes on and on and on and on at that. If I keep reading at this point, the YouTube hammer is going to get rid of me. So we're going to stop at that point. But the diary has been released. It's out to the public. Fox 17 confirming the Tennessee Star releases the writings of Nashville school mass shooter. And our friend Sam J. Politibunny over on Twitchy, who was the editor-in-chief of Twitchy, by the way. Absolutely left-wing terrorism. Covenant School trans shooter Audrey Hale's manifesto writings are released. Interesting how the story about the Covenant School trans shooter Audrey Hale's writings being released is flying under the radar today. We get it, we're all in election mode, but you'd think that this would be a bigger news. Heck, the only reason we saw it was because Twitchy favorite RB Pundit shared it. From the Tennessee Star, on Tuesday, the Tennessee Star editor-in-chief Michael Patrick Leahy released 90 pages of writings left by Covenant School killer Audrey Elizabeth Hale, the Covenant Killer's 2023 journal, which was handwritten by Hale between January and March of 2023, can be downloaded here. The journal was legally obtained by the Star from a source familiar with the investigation. In June of 2024, it was recovered from Hale's vehicle by officers with the Metro Nashville Police Department, along with a spiral notebook after her March 27th attack on Covenant School, where she was murdered 3 9-year-old children and 3 adult staff members before she was killed by MNPD officers. So, again, I do have the link for the Tennessee Star, which you can get a form and have the download link emailed to you at this point. Thanks to Midget B in the Discord for putting this up there where we can see it right away. Let me put this in the chat for you guys in both the Rumble and the YouTube / the main channels. Was it all internet and cell service? And it's fixed back up again. That's kind of cool. When I lived in Redacted, next to Redacted, where I used to live, my then girlfriend and I lost all internet service for like an entire day. No cell service, no internet service, no nothing. I actually went on and loaded up Diablo 2, the original, on an old laptop that was bought specifically to play that game, and played that all day. Alright, so yeah, if you want to get that, that's how you're going to find that. Speaking of neighborhoods that are terrorized, let's talk about Chicago and Aurora. Aurora is interesting because that's always in the center of political crossfire. I've got a 57-second clip from the Chicago 911 of Drew Hernandez. Breaking 911 calls are surfacing from Chicago. 32 Venezuelans armed with firearms, most likely illegal aliens, trespassing a building complex. Get ready, America. This is just the beginning. Let's listen.
Unit 10-3, I'm citywide for some of the guns, 6124 South King Drive. Caller says 32 Venezuelans are trespassing the building, showing guns in the courtyard, and they have motorcycles in the courtyard as well. All stairwells are filled. Nothing further, zone clear. Hey, I'm sorry, you headed over to the ShotSpotter or to the 6124 on King for the migrants?
On King Drive.
Alright, 10-4. There's another available unit to arrive at 310. We had multiple calls. First with the gun, 6124 South King. Also came over to disturbance large gathering. Could be 32 Venezuelans trespassing in the building property, showing guns in the courtyard. They have motorcycles in the courtway, all stairwells filled. And nothing further. Unit 10-3, I'm citywide for some of the guns, 6124 South King Drive. Caller says 32 Venezuelans are trespassing the building, showing guns in the courtyard, and they have motorcycles in the courtyard as well. All stairwells are filled. Nothing further, zone clear.
310.
Hey, I'm sorry. Are you headed over to the shop center or to the 6124 on King for the migrants?
All right. So this is 32 Venezuelans armed with firearms trespassing in a building complex, which they're saying wasn't them taking over. Let's read from ABC 33. Chicago police called over armed Venezuelan migrants in apartment complex, report says, from Ray Lewis. Chicago police received a call Monday night about Venezuelan migrants showing weapons in Southside apartment building, according to a report shared via X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. A dispatcher was told that 32 Venezuelans displayed guns in the courtyard of a complex in the Washington Park neighborhood. The X account Spot News posted they were allegedly trespassing and parked motorcycles there as the stairwells also became filled. A Chicago Tribune photojournalist shared a photo of the scene later that night, saying that, according to a source, no migrants were found with weapons or motorcycles. The CPD did not respond to multiple requests for comment. The reported incident followed a video shared last week by a Colorado resident of a group of men carrying guns and entering an apartment in Aurora. The Aurora City Council member Daniel Jurinsky told the National Desk that people were in control of the building. And we'll be talking about that in just a moment. So, as far as that goes, again, we're sitting in a situation where there's no evidence of this that we can see. Until somebody comes forward with a video of them armed in the hallways with motorcycles out there, or the CPD comes out and releases a statement saying, yes, it's happening, we do have to go under the assumption that was not there. But as far as Aurora goes, concerns growing in Aurora, Colorado over presence of Venezuelan gang, its impact on other migrants. From CNN, a concern is growing in Aurora over the presence of a Venezuelan gang. There have been reports that members of the Tren de Aragua gang took over an apartment complex in the city. Police have not verified those claims. Video circulating on social media shows a group of men trying to break into an apartment unit on Sunday, August 18th. The footage taken by the security camera of resident Edward Romero shows several men carrying firearms in front of a door, with two of them appearing to force it open. Romero told reporters the video was taken shortly before a shootout took place inside the apartment complex. Romero also said he has moved out since the incident occurred. The apartment complex, called The Edge at Lowry, had already seen neighbors complaining about massive trash pile and alleged criminal activity. The alleged gang activity is creating problems for migrants in the area. They say the gang is ruining the reputation of migrants who don't cause trouble and are just trying to make a life for themselves in the U.S. Groups representing them say migrants are trying to get housing and jobs, but some in the community are reluctant to help, fearing that they may be part of a gang. Aurora PD has been proactively patrolling areas where there's suspected Tren de Aragua activity. Now, again, we are in a situation. The fact that they are migrants of Venezuelan extraction does not necessarily denote that they are illegal migrants. I have some suspicions, of course, until there's an official report. Whether or not it is released, for obvious reasons, we will not, and possibly will never know. As far as this goes, though, I mean, even if this is second generation migrants that are coming in here, we do have an issue that's going on with increased crime and gang activity under the Biden-Harris administration. And they can come back and sweep it under the rug and say, oh, well, it's down in this major city and this major city, and have conversations about what's reported and what isn't at this point. But when we talk about this, when we look into things like this, the people on the ground are seeing the increase in crime. Whether or not the statistics show it or not, the people on the ground are showing it, reporting it, and taking video of it. So, at some point, something's got to give. Another one coming to us from San Diego. Sarah Fields, who is a phenomenal X-follow. If you don't follow Sarah Fields, you should. That is at Sarah is Censored. She mostly focuses on finding the receipts for the paid internet shills. Sarah reports a group of illegal migrants attempted to take control of 2 school buses carrying elementary and middle school students in San Diego County, California on Highway 94. The Jamul Dulzura Union School District issued a warning to drivers and parents stating that if a school bus encounters a group of migrants at a stop, it will not halt, leaving students unsupervised. District Superintendent Liz Bystedt confirmed that Border Patrol and the Sheriff's Office have been notified. Let's listen.
A group of migrants tried to board a school bus this morning while it was traveling to a school. The superintendent for the Jamul Dulzura Union School District informed parents of that incident earlier today. It happened at one of the stops on the school district's bus route that heads to Oak Grove Middle School and Jamul Primary. Meanwhile, yesterday afternoon, in a similar area along another route, the superintendent says that a group of migrants tried to stop another bus. Border Patrol, CHP, and the Sheriff's Office have now been informed of these incidents. The superintendent says that for the safety of everyone, if a driver sees a group of migrants at a bus stop, they will drive past it and move on to the next. A group of migrants tried to board a school.
I don't know how they're going to determine that they're migrants or not, and I'm sure that's going to be the conversation our left-wing friends are going to be having about this. From the New York Post, a group of 20 migrants attempted to enter a California school bus, picking up students in a really scary scene. From Ronnie Reyes. A group of about 20 migrants terrified young children by trying to get onto their California school bus early Wednesday, a day after a smaller group walked down a highway trying to stop another bus, district officials said. The alarming incidents took place at the Jamul Dulzura Union School District, close to the Mexico border, where bus drivers are now being ordered to skip stops where migrants might be waiting. On Tuesday, at least 3 migrants walked in the middle of Highway 94 to try to stop a bus that was forced to go around them, Fox 5 reported. Then early Wednesday, about 20 of them all tried to get on a bus at the same stop, just off the highway, as students got on for school, forcing parents to make sure their kids were safe. It was definitely scary, said Mom Nicole Cardinale, whose 8-year-old son was on the bus on Wednesday. Your initial shock is you're helpless, she said, of getting alerted to the scary run-in. Cardinale said her son was really confused by the scary episode. He said those adults, they weren't kids, had backpacks on, and they were trying to get on our bus. He said there was a lot of them, she told Fox 5. And I know how some of this is going to get spun. San Diego for California is and I say this word loosely, relatively conservative county. It's a relatively conservative area of California compared to the majority of LA, Oakland, San Diego. San Diego is what we're talking about. San Francisco is what I meant to say, and Sacramento. It is at that point fairly, I don't want to say red or conservative, but by comparison, yes. So, of course, we know that if this does get some mainstream motion, which it doesn't appear to be at this time, that the first thing we're going to hear is how racist this white parent is for coming out and bringing this up even. And how racist the school district is for assuming that every group of Hispanic-looking people is a group of migrants. But at some point, something's got to give. Your first priority, your first responsibility in the school system and in the school busing system is to keep the kids safe. So we do have that. Now, the deputies say that the migrants didn't forcefully try to stop or enter the buses in Dulzura. If I don't have video for this, I'm going to call this again a toss-up in the air. And East County mothers describing her 8-year-old son's account of a group of men, some of them undocumented migrants, trying to get on the school bus in Dulzura. Cardinale says a group of men was at the door of the bus. The incident has left parents with questions. Why they thought it was okay to get on a school bus. I know that there's a language barrier, but they also need to have some empathy. These are children, and how frightened they possibly were, said Cardinale. We don't know any of their background history. The bottom line is we don't know any of their intentions, said Jeremy Adams, whose son attends a school in the same district. Immigrant advocates said it's possible the men were confused, as buses are the main form of transportation in many home countries. Deputies told ABC 10 News on Friday they determined no crime was committed, since their investigation found no one forcibly tried to stop or enter the school buses. It's not uncommon for community volunteers and charitable organizations to provide resources in these parts of the country, some of which operate vehicles similar to school buses, the sheriff's office wrote in an email. Well, if they're illegal migrants, then it doesn't really matter if they were forceful or not. Get them into custody. If you've got to do it, get a custody hearing and an asylum hearing going, or back you go. Palm doesn't know how she can hear stream. Mog says, what pisses me off is they come out and say these migrants are bad, or those illegals are so bad. Truth be told, majority of illegals are trying to make a living by doing shit work. The country makes it impossible for someone to become illegal. Yeah, but I still want them to do it the right way. With kids, they have to assume bad intentions, correct? God forbid something happens to the kids. Mog says, they had some candy though. How do we know they were illegal immigrants? Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question either. But with this being swept under the rug, we probably will never know the answer to that question, unfortunately. Alright, let's keep going. I'm probably going to have to drop a few more off of this. This one was left by listener Palm in the Discord, so I want to go over this one. I try to give deference to listener request, unless it's violently anti-Jew, Midget B. Mexico pauses relations with U.S. and Canadian embassies. From Abel Alvarado. Mexico's President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador is halting diplomatic relations with the U.S. and Canadian embassies after their ambassadors criticized his proposal to have judges elected by popular vote. Lopez Obrador announced the move during his daily press conference on Tuesday, saying, "The pause is with the embassies and not the countries." He said relations will be reestablished once the diplomats are respectful of the independence of Mexico and the sovereignty of our country. CNN has contacted the U.S. and Canadian embassies in Mexico for comment. Lopez Obrador's proposal for judicial reform is part of the package of constitutional changes he has been seeking, which have yet to be approved. On Monday, a congressional committee approved the proposal. It now requires 2/3 approval of both chambers of Congress. The reforms include a range of issues in areas like pensions and the energy sector, but they also include controversial judicial and institutional reforms, which critics say would weaken the separation of powers and see the disappearance of some independent regulatory agencies. Ambassador to Mexico Ken Salazar said last Thursday he believes a popular direct election of judges is a major risk to the functioning of Mexico's democracy. Salazar stressed that judicial reforms should ensure the judiciary would be strengthened and not subject to the corruption of politics. The ambassador also said the move could impact U.S.-Mexico trade relations. The U.S. and Mexico are each other's top trading partners. There's a lot going on with this. Now, for diplomatic ties, I will always defer to the guest in your house theory. If you are a guest in another country, whether you have diplomatic immunity or not, you should defer to the country's organization and their laws. You can weigh in on that, but if you try to go further than that, do remember that you are a guest in that country. And you also have to adhere to their rules regarding speech. You have diplomatic immunity for some things, but your speech and your actions will affect the way that trade relations go. Now, are these people wrong? I'm not a diplomat, so I can say, no, I don't think that they are. With Mexico, there is a, quote, a popular vote on district judges. But how popular it actually is remains to be seen, because a lot of the government is controlled by the drug cartels that help ship human trafficking victims and political dissidents over our border. So there are reasons to understand and question whether or not they're actually being picked by the people, or they're being picked by the people, quote, by ballot stuffing or other organizations. And I can sit and criticize their system and their government corruption all day long, because again, I'm not a fucking diplomat. I'm a guy with a webcam. But when you're a guest in somebody else's country, to establish ties like trade and commerce and everything else, yeah, you got to be a little bit more careful than this. For one of the bigger news stories. I don't know if we're going to war over this right now. That is my concern. And as I said earlier, my default position is anti-war in all forms. Whether or not we can keep that at this point, I don't know. From NPC News. 6 hostages, including Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Poland, found dead in Gaza. From Rebecca Cohen, Megan Leibowitz, Haley Walker, and Yarden Segev. One day after the Israeli army recovered the bodies of 6 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza, hundreds of thousands of protesters took to the streets in Tel Aviv on Sunday to demand the Israeli government negotiate a deal to bring the remaining hostages home. The IDF identified the 6, all of whom were taken hostage in the October 7th Hamas terror attack, as Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Poland, Carmel Gat, Eden Yerushalmi, Alexander Lobanov, Almog Sarusi, and Master Sergeant Ori Danino. Biden said the bodies of the hostages were recovered in a tunnel under Rafah. I'm devastated and outraged, man, Biden said in a statement. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, an IDF spokesperson, said Hamas killed the 6. Shortly before Israeli forces reached them, their bodies were found less than a mile from the tunnel, where hostage Cade Farhan Akkadi was rescued this week. He said, a spokesperson for Israel's health ministry, said the 6 were killed sometime Thursday or Friday. Since Farhan's identification, the forces have been instructed to act with extra caution, even more so than usual, understanding that there might be additional hostages in the area. He said, we did not have information on the exact location of these hostages. So, they're killing hostages. And they're doing it because they can. Because from Gaza's side of this, there's no real incentive to go on and negotiate with a deal. No matter who becomes president in the US, there's going to be a deference towards Israel. Kamala Harris has come out and said it. Trump, with the R next to his name, almost has to. Plus, he's, in spite of being called anti-Semitic every single day of his presidency and post-presidency, was one of the most pro-Israel presidents out there. Why the anti-Semite cousin fuckers still support him, I don't know. But he was one of the most pro-Israel presidents of this. But this, we're at the point now where this is a U.S. citizen, but this is the second time in the Middle East in this admin where a U.S. citizen was killed in a non-war zone. And the Biden admin has really done nothing about it. The first being the blind drone attack, coming from, they still presume, was Iran, on the Jordanian border. since my libertarian friends tell me we can't talk about these regions of the world without knowing where everything is, let's bring up the Middle East. I gotta do this in Brave, though. Bring this over here. So bringing up the map, obviously we've been talking a lot about Gaza, and now Israel's talking about going to the West Bank too. I had to bump that story, but down here in the IDF tunnels we have this going on. Near the border with Beit Hanun and Sderot. And another one was it was Syria, not Jordan, by the way. I got that one wrong. No, it was Jordan. But when we had our listening bases over here on the Jordanian border with Iraq, then Iran jumped over Iraq and even started some of the drones in Iraq and took out our listening post over here, killing American citizens with no real consequence as well. This is a hotbed. And this is a major excuse for the U.S. to go back and get into the war in this region, which is something I staunchly stand against. But I also know it's something that our current admin has been itching for, based on the fact that people don't like to change horses in the middle of a war. Well, let's just keep going on with Kamala Harris because we don't want to change teams in the middle of the war. It might destabilize everything. CBS News reporting U.S. charges senior Hamas leaders with deaths of Americans in Israel. From Robert Lejar, Andres Trier, and Nicole Zganga. Federal prosecutors filed criminal charges against senior Hamas leaders for the deaths of at least 43 American citizens in Israel on October 7th, according to charging documents unsealed on Tuesday. Okay, how do you exercise that warrant? Do you go in and forcefully kidnap somebody in a foreign country? Because, I remind you, that's an act of war. As of the date of this complaint, at least 43 American citizens were among those murdered, and at least 10 American citizens were taken hostage or remain unaccounted for, the criminal complaint filed on Monday says. Prosecutors filed 6 defendants for conduct leading up to and following the October 7th attack, including terrorism, murder conspiracy, and sanctions evasion. The defendants were identified as Yahya Sinwar, the leader of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, the former chairman of Hamas's Politburo, Mohammed al-Masri, the commander-in-chief of the Al-Qassam Brigades, Marwan Issa, the deputy commander of the Al-Qassam Brigades, Khaled Mashal, the head of Hamas's diaspora office, and Ali Baraka, Hamas's head of national relations abroad. Haniyeh and al-Masri and Issa are deceased, and the remaining 3 are at large. Well, we might be in a war by the end of the month, or at least by the election day, so strap yourselves in. God, I hope we're not in a war. I'm gonna skip the Maduro one. Apparently, the U.S. has seized a plane by Maduro. X is suspended in Brazil. Elon Musk Xing out. Today we launched the daily data dump in the crimes under Brazilian law that fake judge Alexandre has committed. He can block this platform in Brazil, but he can't stop the whole world from knowing his illegal, shameful, and hypocritical deeds. Karma's a bitch, bro. Alexandre files on an official government X account. I'm sorry. It's a journalistic account. It says, today we begin shining a light on the abuses of Brazilian law committed by Alexandre Alexandre de Moraes. We've been forced to share these orders because there's no transparency from the court, and the people who are being censored have no recourse to appeal. Our own appeals have been ignored. And now the people of Brazil are denied access to X. Secret justice is no justice at all. Today we say that must change. So, to catch you up, TLDR. X is blocked in Brazil by the government of Brazil. We'll probably get some reasons for that in the next few articles here. And Elon is not happy about this. Elon, of course, looking to facilitate free speech. And there's apparently an $8,000 fine for using a VPN to go around the ban of X. From the BBC, top Brazil court upholds ban of Musk's X. Business reporter João de Silva and Latin America editor Vanessa Buschluter. Brazil's Supreme Court has upheld a ban on social media platform X, formerly known as Twitter. The judges voted unanimously in favor of the measure, meaning the ban will stay in place. X has been suspended in Brazil since the early hours of Saturday after it failed to appoint a new legal representative in the country before a court-imposed deadline. It's the latest development in the feud between Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes and Elon Musk, which began in April when the judge ordered the suspension of dozens of accounts for allegedly spreading disinformation. Justice Moraes has called for the 5-member panel to rule on the suspension, which has caused division in Brazil. One of the justices, Flavio Dino, argued the freedom of expression is closely linked to the duty of responsibility. The first can't exist without the second and vice versa, he added. Reacting to the decision to ban X, Mr. Musk said earlier, free speech is the bedrock of a democracy, and an unelected pseudo-judge in Brazil is destroying it for political purposes. In his ruling, Judge Moraes gave companies, including Apple and Google, a 5-day deadline to remove X from its app stores and block its use on iOS and Android devices. He added that individuals or businesses are found to still be accessing X by using VPNs could be fined. I forget what the currency is in Brazil, but it's 50,000 of their dollars, quote, or about $8,910 or 6,780 US pounds. Why is the pound that much stronger than the US dollar? X closed its office in Brazil last month, saying its representative had been threatened with arrest if she did not comply with orders it described as censorship, which it said was illegal under Brazilian law. Again, my first default is the laws of the country are the laws of the country. Yes, you can criticize it all you want, and I criticize it from here. I think it's absolutely asinine that rather than trying to debunk the, quote, disinformation that's out there, that instead the courts have restricted the ability of Brazilians to freely speak and have discourse with each other. And also sending a message to sites like Meta and Instagram and the TikTok and everything else that do what we say or you're going to get banned out of our country too. Justice Moraes had ordered that X accounts of accused of spreading disinformation, many of which belong to supporters of the former right-wing president Jair Bolsonaro, must be blocked while they're under investigation. Brazil is said to be one of the largest markets for Musk's social media network. With access to X blocks, many Brazilians have been turning to microblogging platform Blue Sky as an alternative. So, I don't agree with their decision. It is their choice, and yes, I know that Musk is going to lose a large amount of market share because Brazil is such an active use of X. And I hope the people see this and change their voting patterns. I really do. Let's see. Agent K, a person is smart, people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it. Men in Black. Correct. Mogwai also says anti-Semitic cousin fuckers. We're going to have a drop in viewership in West Virginia with talk like that. And Alabama. And Mississippi, probably. Mogwai also says Kentucky too, maybe some parts of Minnesota. Well, in those parts of Minnesota, they're actually anti-Semitic sister fuckers. I hear Kentucky isn't a bad place to live. I wouldn't mind it. I'd consider it. Let's see. Where do I want to go into this? There are a couple more that I want to get to. So this one here, I'm just going to go with the headline this because I'm going to answer this with yes. Could Brazil's X-ban spread to other countries? This is coming to us from Newsweek from Marie Boran. But without even reading the article, I will come out and say yes. And it's possible that this country is one of those countries. Think I'm being hyperbolic? We'll start with an old clip from the Donald Trump account. Liberocrat on X says, breaking. A clip of Kamala Harris has just surfaced of her calling on Twitter, now X, to silence Trump by taking away his right to free speech on their platform because of mean tweets. If this woman somehow wins, we are doomed. Let's listen.
But I guess the question about you I know you wrote to Twitter and the CEO, Jack Dorsey, and asked him to take away the president's Twitter handle, his account. How is that not a violation of free speech? I mean, the president has the same rights that you have, that I have, and how would that not just be a slippery slope where they have to ban, half of the people on Twitter?
I've heard that argument, but here's the thing, Jake. First of all, a corporation, which is what Twitter is, it does not have it has obligations, and in this case, Twitter has terms of use policy. And their terms of use dictate who receives the privilege of speaking on that platform and who does not. And Donald Trump has clearly violated the terms of use, and there should be a consequence for that, not to mention the fact that he has used his platform, being the President of the United States, in a way that has been about inciting fear and potentially inciting harm against a witness to what might be a crime against our country and our democracy. And for that reason, I do believe that it's clear that he has violated the terms of use, and I'm asking that Twitter does what it has done in previous occasions, which is to revoke someone's privilege because they've not lived up to the advantages of the privilege.
So, in terms of service, again, that's part of the reason I dance around so many terms and words when I talk, especially with something that's only going to go on YouTube. Is yes, you are a guest on the platform. You defer to the terms of service, but that is between the business owner and the user. What we have here is a government agent who was a senator at the time, about to be sworn in as vice president, but was still a senator at the time, who was calling on a private industry to ban somebody and take away their freedom of speech. Another clip, Kamala will shut down X if she wins, and wokeness, providing the video for Clown World.
He has lost his privileges, and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule.
Yes, you can. They're different companies. Yes, that actually is only going through one channel. I can hear it in my headphones too.
Has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Why? Why does that have to stop? Because they're saying things you don't like? And Mark Zuckerberg also admitted Biden-Harris pressured Facebook to censor Americans. Facebook censored Americans. And Facebook throttled the Hunter Biden laptop story in a statement from Meta. I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you're aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of your investigation and made a dozen employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I've taken away from this process. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden admin, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Unfortunately, or ultimately rather, it was our decision whether or not to take this content down, and we own our decisions, including the Pinko Pox-related changes we made to our enforcement in the wake of the pressure. In a separate situation, the FBI warned us about a potential Russian disinformation operation about the Biden family and Burisma in the lead up to the 2020 election. That fall, when we saw the New York Post story reporting on the corruption allegations involving then Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden's family, we sent that story to fact checkers for review and temporarily demoted it while waiting for our reply. It's since been made clear that reporting was not Russian disinformation, and in retrospect, we shouldn't have demoted the story. So again, we've got the government coming in and telling these companies, which facilitate free speech, what free speech should be allowed. But, of course, not to be outdone, according to CNN, and I haven't watched the video clip here, Trump threatens Mark Zuckerberg with life in prison. Let's listen to this one, because I want to hear where this goes.
Mea culpa. Former President Trump unleashing new attacks against Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg for Facebook's involvement in the last election cycle. Trump's new book called Save America comes out next week and features this image of the former president with Zuckerberg inside the Oval Office. Trump writes in the caption that Zuckerberg plotted against him during his re-election campaign and warns Zuckerberg, quote, if he does anything illegal this time, he will spend the rest of his life in prison, as will others who cheat in the 2024 presidential election. Zuckerberg now vowing to not repeat the same mistakes his company made during the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2020 presidential election. In a letter this week to House Judiciary Committee Chair Jim Jordan, Zuckerberg writes, in 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take content down. We own our decisions. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. In a separate issue, the Facebook founder also said that his company should have never demoted a New York Post story that covered corruption allegations against Hunter Biden that were discovered on a laptop during the 2020 presidential election. The FBI had warned Meta about a potential Russian disinformation hack against the Bidens, but further reporting later proved the Russians had nothing to do with those allegations. The GOP also criticized Zuckerberg for donating more than $400 million to help nonprofits run local elections in urban, rural, and suburban communities during the pandemic. Republicans claimed that money unfairly benefited Democrats. Zuckerberg ended his letter with this: my goal is to be neutral and not play a role one way or another, or to even appear to be playing a role, so I don't plan on making a similar contribution this cycle. Joining me now is Greg Lukianoff, a free speech advocate who is president and CEO of the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. He's the co-author of a great book called The Canceling of the American Mind. Greg, great to see you again. So in striking a balance between content moderation or maintaining neutrality, he is saying, I'm coming down on the side of neutrality. I imagine you think that's the right way to go.
Oh, absolutely. Because basically, if people see social media companies as censoring speech on a political basis, they're never going to trust them, ever. And here's the one frustrating thing about this. And I want to say this directly to Mark Zuckerberg, that essentially, next time the government tries to coerce you into censorship, please sue. There was an important case in front of the government, in front of the Supreme Court this summer called Murphy v. Missouri, that was that lost on procedural grounds because they found that the people saying that they were censored because the government pressured social media to censor them didn't have standing. But if Mark Zuckerberg, if Facebook had decided to sue in that case, we would have won. And by we, I mean the American public.
All right, a lot to unpack with this. One of the big things with that, though, too, is because Trump has threatened Zuckerberg with life in prison. Dude, that ain't it. This ain't it. I mean, you've made some very, very, very good proposals for a second Trump term. This ain't it. This isn't one of them. Yes, you can be frustrated with this, but the bottom line is election interference or not. He was acting in the best interest of himself with a corrupted administration who possibly was also threatening with life in prison, breathing down his fucking mechanical neck. Address it, bring it out to light, or like this guy said, sue the government for it. I'm a little bit frustrated with that. We'll talk a bit about that and things that I hate in just a bit here. But threatening a private citizen with life in prison reeks of corruption. That's the Harris thing to do, right there. Is to threaten somebody that doesn't agree with you with life in prison. That's the Kamala thing to do. Don't be like that. All right. And the last one, also coming to us from CNN. I don't know why this keeps happening. Former aide to New York governor charged with acting as an agent of the Chinese government. So what have we had? Dianne Feinstein's driver, the woman who fisted Eric Swalwell's asshole, and now an aide in Kathy Hochul's administration. Why does this keep happening, and why do they always turn out to be Chinese? From Gloria Pazmino and Mark Morales. Oh crap, I'm over the 2-hour mark. Alright, let's wrap this up. I'm hungry. A former aide to New York Governor Kathy Hochul and former Governor Andy Cuomo was charged with acting as an agent for the Chinese government, U.S. Attorney Breanne Peace announced on Tuesday. Linda Sun, a former deputy chief of staff to Hochul and Cuomo aide, was charged with violating and conspiring to violate the Foreign Agents Registration Act, visa fraud, alien smuggling, and money laundering conspiracy, according to an unsealed copy of the indictment. Her husband and co-defendant, Chris Hu, was also charged with money laundering, conspiracy, and conspiracy to commit bank fraud, as well as misusing means of identification, prosecutors said. Why does this keep happening? Better question, why does this keep happening to Democrats? All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. But why do we keep having this conversation about Democrats? There seems to be a pattern here. Alright, let's do some things that I like and some things that I hate. But first, the rules of acquisition. The Ferengi religion involves how they conduct commerce between themselves, each other, and other species in the galaxy. They have codified a set of 419 rules, which are their commandments in their religion, on how you conduct business with each other, with your own species, and with other species around the galaxy. If you follow these rules, the better you follow them, the more social credit you will have at the end of your life as you go to the Divine Treasury, and the more currency that you will have to bid on your next life. Every week, We look through one of these rules of acquisition, explain, if applicable, how it is used in canon, and how it can be used also if applicable, because let's remember, Roddenberry was an avowed communist in real life, unless he's fully making fun of capitalism itself. Last week, we read the 15th Rule of Acquisition, a testament to self-preservation. Dead men close no deals. Now we move on to the 16th Rule of Acquisition, which does not come from official on-screen canon, but comes to a reference book that was released alongside of Deep Space Nine, detailing some of these rules of acquisition, both what was shown on screen and stuff that didn't make it to the screen. The 16th Rule of Acquisition is a deal until a better one comes along. Now, in certain situations, it's wise to be rigid with the way that you make your dealings. It opens up trustworthiness and makes people understand that if they come out and lowball you and you accept, then yes, you'll be good to do business with. I mean, you've got your review system on eBay, you've got Trusted Trader on certain online games, things like that. And a deal is a deal. But sometimes you do have to, if you're in the interest of profit, keep your options open, especially if something is in play but has not been closed yet. I mean, as long as you're still in possession of the item, possession is 9/10 of the law, and you're still open to make a better deal. If you got somebody who came to you for $30-40 under asking price on something, and before that person goes to the ATM and gets the money, somebody comes by and has $20 over asking price on this, I mean, the smart money is to go on to the person who's over asking price on it. It's a little bit backhanded, but... And yes, I think this falls under the Roddenberry mockery of capitalism, but realistically, a deal is a deal until the better one comes along. It doesn't tell you to take the better deal, but it tells you to at least be open with it. And you can make the moral decision whether to honor the original deal or to take the better one that comes along. Alright, some things that I like today. The dude, I talked about this at the top of the show, with a t-shirt that says abolish the IRS. The dude says, I'm considering cutting off all my locks. Has anyone ever done it to donate to cancer patients? That's me. I have. And mine was for kids too. I don't want these 2.5 years to go to waste, and I'd be happy if a child cancer warrior could enjoy my curly 12-inch hair as theirs. To which my friend John Arcus says, my buddy J. Edgar 102 has. And I responded to this, and there's a thread in this as well. I'll get the document and let you know which charity mine went to. Awesome cause, brother, and this just made contemporary. So we're talking about this now. I love it when people donate to charity. I really do. I will touch base with the dude, and we'll figure out what coordinate. I'll make sure that he can start looking up that charity, so he makes sure he goes to a place that works with it. If he was close to here, western Wisconsin or southern Wisconsin, I will direct him directly to the place that chopped my hair. And they'll actually get him 4 good wigs out of it, because they separated mine into 4 so I could get more hair out of it. Because if they had just taken the ponytail, they would have only taken like 8-10 inches. Because they took it in 4 little locks like that up closer to the top here, they got 14. So, thank you, the dude. Other things that I like today. Swifties for Trump. Taylor Nation is fracturing over the election. This is another one that's locked behind the paywall, but I want to talk about this for just a moment. Because with Taylor Swift, at least out in the open, being an avowed leftoid, I don't really think that she is, but she's got to do it out in the open to make sure that she doesn't get canceled and her next tour gets boycotted or shit like that. I think that's a little bit more of what she's doing with this, but because of her political leanings and then the religious fervor of her followers to her, there's a lot of expectation that anybody who follows Swift is automatically going to vote for Democrat. And I like the fact that there's not a typecast, that people are looking individually to this. I don't want all Ted Nugent fans to vote Republican. I want them to vote their conscience. and what it is they believe. I don't want all Kid Rock fans and Hulk Hogan fans to vote Republican just because of the leanings of the celebrities. I want them to analyze the issues, find where they fall in them, and vote for the best candidate. I hope to God it's not Kamala Harris in those cases. I really do. I pray to. But it is their conscience to do so. And to the Swifties who are breaking rank with those who will ostracize you and having the courage to do so, I cheer for you as well. Make your own decision. Don't let your fandom dictate who it is that you have to support. Now let's do a couple things that I hate. The McDonald's question. Somehow, somewhere over the past week, Kamala Harris came out and said that she was just like everybody else because she used to work at a McDonald's. With people quickly running out and pointing out the fact that when they call McDonald's or serve them with the Freedom of Information Act, that McDonald's has no record of her ever working for them. Now, a lot of people have correctly pointed out that this was 40-some years ago, and businesses back then were paper and pencil and didn't keep records for more than 7 years. Snopes even coming in and putting this as, last I checked it, I believe, is research in progress. They don't know if she has or not. She's made the claim repeatedly over the years. The part that bothers me about this is not the fact that McDonald's doesn't have the records. I wouldn't anticipate that they would at this point 7 years later. The problem is that she can't seem to tell you which McDonald's she worked at. She cannot go and say, I worked at the one on North and Broadway. I don't even know if there's a McDonald's on North and Broadway in Los Angeles. I just threw street names out there. So, yeah, if you want to put some believability to this story, even if it's not true, that's the other side of it. Because it's in California, because you have a D after your name, and there's religious deference to the Democrat Party in California. Even if you just threw out a random McDonald's, people will come out of the woodwork to say, oh yeah, I totally worked with her 40 years ago. Ma'am, you're only 39. No, I totally worked with her at that McDonald's 40 years ago. Vote Harris, evil orange man. This would be like that easy to clear up, and they won't even come back out and do that. Another one that I hate, and this comes directly from Governor Youngkin. HB 18 and SB 7 are bipartisan pieces of legislation. Bullshit! That build on our framework of action because hatred, intolerance, and anti-Semitism have no place in the Commonwealth. We remain committed to prioritizing the safety and security of all Virginians, with a link to his official page announcing 2 bills that criminalize freedom of speech. Look, I am no fan of anti-Semitism. Sometimes I go with my friend Midget B on and joke with him about it. But I am myself no fan of anti-Semitism. I would never, ever, ever in my life ask somebody else to use the government to enforce that belief on other people. There are people that think of the grand conspiracy that I probably can't mention on YouTube. I think they're morons. There are people that think that people who wear that funny hat are in control of every lever of government and in turn their lives. I think that they have no semblance of self-responsibility. I'm not going to call on the government to stop that. I'm going to laugh at them from afar. This is the reason right here that I cannot be a Republican. I have very fiscally conservative ideas. I could never be a Republican. I'm gonna touch on these two here before I go on to the main one that I hate. I'm going to jump around just a little bit. So, cannot be confirmed at this point, and I did look it up before, but allegedly, Madison, Wisconsin is starting to open up COVID restrictions again. Matt Batesel with a photo. Welcome back, Pancakers. We're glad to have you back. You might notice we're flipping things around a bit with a short stack of new procedures, all to keep you and our team members drizzled in safety syrup. We're following federal, state, and local mandates, so things are going to look a little different, like reduced seating for proper social distancing, limited menus, syrup caddies provided on request, and one-time use menus that you can take home for your next delivery or takeout. And just so you know, we also have heightened cleaning, sanitizing, and disinfecting procedures. That I don't disagree with. And schedules, all to help you pancake in peace. Now enjoy your visit with the 6-foot rule on place. Now, number one, no timestamp off this, so I don't know if this is current or not. Out of Madison, it wouldn't surprise me, but I've seen no evidence or statement from the mayor's office in Madison saying that yes, they're putting COVID restrictions in. Now, what I think has actually happened, and I see a couple other people in the comments saying this, is I think they might have just put this up here because they were short-staffed. It's a convenient scapegoat to say, no, we don't want as many people in the restaurant at the same time because we can't keep servers in the restaurant. But regardless, it's in a situation, and it's especially, again, in liberal Dane County, possibly going to push people into the panic mode and conveniently timed just a couple months before the election. I wanted to touch on this one. According to Gabbard, again, would need corroboration off of this. Gabbard says Harris and Biden admin put me on a terror watch list day after Biden endorsed Harris from Daily Wire News. Former Rep. Tulsi Gabbard, who has since left the Democratic Party due to how extreme it has become, said over the weekend that she was placed on a domestic terrorist watch list the day after Biden dropped out of the race and endorsed Harris to be the party's nominee. Gabbard made the remarks during a Sunday interview on CNN's State of the Union after House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer revealed last month that whistleblowers at the Federal Air Marshal Service informed Congress that Gabbard had been improperly targeted. So we do have corroboration for this one. Interesting. The government using a terror watch list against its own citizens for political reasons? I'm shocked. I'm not that shocked. Let's listen.
What I pointed out in that debate stage in the 2020 campaign was her hypocrisy. It was how she was saying one thing and doing another, how she was prosecuting people for smoking marijuana and laughing about it when she was asked about it on a radio show. And I think this goes to the heart of many of these different issues that we're seeing now that Kamala Harris is trying to hide from voters, is how she says her position is one thing, but her actions and her record show exactly the opposite. And you can point to that on issues related to the economy, issues related to freedom of speech. She says she stands for freedom of speech, and yet, as we've seen time and time again, her and Joe Biden have taken actions both directly and indirectly to censor free speech. Most recently, I can point to my own experience of this, of how the Harris-Biden administration have added me to a secret domestic terror watch list the very day after Kamala Harris was endorsed by Joe Biden, and I was on TV and warning the American people about what I saw as the dangers of a Kamala Harris presidency, taking action that was clearly political retaliation. They've done this to a lot of different people, which points to how dangerous it is to have people in power so willing to abuse that power to go after political opponents.
Okay, I'm not familiar.
Okay, again, if corroborable, this right here is the reason that I might vote Trump. God, I don't want to vote for Trump. But we got shit like this. Alright, and the last one that I hate. This is worse. There's a shining light at the end of it, but this is worse. Because I used to live here. Believe it or not. Not just Mass, but this city in Mass on top of it. I know I don't do self-docs at all, but I was 2008. So it's been 16 years. Don't think anybody's going to find records of me there anymore. Especially since I was never officially a resident of the state. I was a non-resident student. Loopholes! Connor Boyack. X is out. Meet the 12-year-old Danny. He's holding a letter from the health department ordering to shut down his ice cream stand. The letter states the Norwood Health Department has received a complaint that you're making and selling scooped ice cream and cookies at your residential property. The Massachusetts Food Code does not allow for the sale of ice cream made in the home. Please desist in these activities. Here's what Danny's mom said. Somebody complained. This was the most disappointing part, was that somebody thought it was necessary to complain about a child's stand. It seemed a little, crazy, if you ask me. The community rallied behind Danny and fought back. Town officials claimed they got hate mail and death threats. The Founding Fathers didn't throw off the shackles of British tyranny in order to create a government where kids could be threatened with fines and jail time if they sold food on their front lawn. And yes, this is corroborated. Workers received threats after shutting down Norwood's boys' ice cream stand, town says. My official stance is that you should not threaten people, members of your government. Wink. By Colton Bradford and Michael Casey. A shuttered ice cream stand fundraiser would become a major success story for a young boy trying to raise funds for his brother's hockey team, but officials say it's also caused frictions and threats to town workers who are just trying to do their job protecting public health. Danny Doherty, a 12-year-old boy from Norwood, Massachusetts, started selling homemade ice cream to the Boston Bear Cubs for mass kids with physical and developmental disabilities, including his brother who has autism. But he was shut down with a letter from the Norwood Health Department, which said it received a complaint that the stand violated the Mass Food Code, the state regulation. I was surprised and upset, he said in a letter that came August 5th. I don't understand because there are so many lemonade stands that don't get shut down. Silver lining. By the way, I might be able to interview these people. I know people down there still. I'm going to make a couple texts after this. And this didn't come in the mainstream US media. This came from the Times of India. Community raised $20,000 after health department shut down 12-year-old's ice cream stand. Local community in Norwood, a suburb of Boston, raised $20 grand after a 12-year-old's ice cream stand was shut down due to a mass food code violation following a complaint. Danny Doherty, seeking a summer project, began selling homemade ice cream to fundraise for his brother's hockey team. His stand featured flavors like vanilla, shaved chocolate, and fluffernutter, quickly drew about 20 customers. A few days later, the Norwood Board of Health closed the stand for a mass food code violation after a complaint. Despite this setback, the community swiftly rallied around Danny, leading his ice cream, selling out in just 10 minutes on the first giveaway day and raising approximately $20,000. Look, I'm going to say that there is a certain selfishness to New Englanders. I've lived there. I understand. I know these people. But there's a camaraderie among them as well. I'm still alive today because of some of that camaraderie. Not because of anything the state or city government did. But because that there was a community and the ability for people to come in and help each other out. Bravo, Norwood. Bravo. I'm proud to have briefly called you my residents, even though I was a non-resident student. Bravo. Alright, let's get out of here. Someday I might understand these rules of acquisition. That's what I'm hoping for. That's part of the reason I pushed you to watch Deep Space Nine with me. Is so you'll understand some of these. It is kind of funny, too, how they present it. What does Swift think about this? Unclear. All right. What a night. It's been interesting, that's for sure. I'm going to see if I can get that family on Ed Talk. That would be a fun one, I think. I'm trying not to make it political, but this is community, and I'm glad for the community. Anyway, outro music. Holy crap, that's loud. Woo! Anyway, thanks everybody who came by and hung out and chatted in the live chat. It's been fun. It's been awesome. And yes, even though I got started late, you guys came and vibed with me. That was awesome of you as well. We'll be back here tomorrow night for more news. Well, no more news tomorrow night. We'll be back here tomorrow night to continue on with one of my favorite video games in history. Yes, we'll be continuing down the road of Mario RPG. I am so glad I started this. It's going to be so much fun. Fallout Friday again on Friday as well. Apologize for missing Fallout Friday last week. I will come back out and say I did 10 and a half straight hours of computer work. No lunch, no anything else. Staring at a screen the whole time. And you can ask Pom for verification because she was here and with me after the fact. And I didn't even look at my phone. Except for a couple instances checking some emails throughout the entire night. I was so burnt out by looking at screens. I couldn't look at a screen for 3 more hours that night. So I apologize for that. We'll be back for Fallout Friday again this coming Friday. Thanks so much, everybody. And take care. Have a good night. Find some friends. Have a good sleep. Get some dinner if you haven't already. Come on. If you haven't had dinner already, what are you doing? Go get some dinner. We'll be back here next week at the regular time for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Definitely looking forward to it. Looking forward to seeing you guys. And until that happens, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.